library director. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry. So as chair of Arts in Clark, together with library director Gail Bogle and this evening's presenter, Catherine Lenoci, we would like to welcome you all to Clark Memorial Library's first Artists in Conversation event for 2022. The goal of this remote program, which we started in 2021, is to provide a connection between local artists and the Bethany community. Before I introduce our guest artist, I would like to mention a few things. First, the Clark Memorial Library and Arts at Clark are planning our third annual outdoor art exhibit to be held on Sunday, August 14th, right here on the beautiful library grounds, a family-friendly event for the whole Bethany community. More info is available through our website, bethanylibrary.org, and by clicking on Arts at Clark. Second, once the renovations are complete on the children's room, monthly art exhibits will resume inside the library, hopefully starting in January 2023. In just a few minutes, Catherine will give her presentation. Please keep your mic muted throughout her presentation. Afterwards, there will be time for questions, comments, and discussion. You may also use the chat feature anytime to write comments or questions. So now please let me tell you a little bit about tonight's guest artist. Catherine Lenoci is a mixed media artist who lives in Shelton with her husband. She recently retired from her position as a physical therapist for a home health agency. Her artistic journey began over 30 years ago when a friend got her hooked on rubber stamping and card making. Since then, she has taken many in-person and online classes for painting, mixed media, bookmaking, and stitching. About 8 years ago, she started to work in an art journal, which she found to be a great outlet to express thoughts about what is happening in her life and experiment with different techniques. She continues to make cards, altered books, and collage canvases to give to people for special occasions. She finds inspiration in almost everything, but especially nature, her family, and travel. She is eternally grateful to her family, who all encourage her artistic endeavors, and especially her husband, who does not complain about her addiction to buying art supplies. Please welcome Catherine Lenoci.
Thanks, Liz.
You're welcome.
Okay. I started out making cards using rubber stamps and different bits of ephemera. I made a Chinese New Year's card using a money packet that I had picked up in Singapore. And sometimes if we're invited to a special occasion and we get an invitation, I'll use parts of the invitation in the card just to make it more special and more personal. Besides using rubber stamps, I've also used foam stamps too. These are some examples of cards that I made using photos. I do like to take photographs, and I've taken some classes in photography. So I'll often make cards using photos and rubber stamps and decorative paper. In 2014, I took my first art journaling class. There's many definitions for art journaling versus visual journaling. An art journal is a place to use to try different artistic techniques. So every page is like a little piece of art. A visual journal is more of an artistic story or record of life, capturing moments using art, photos, news, or magazine clippings. So my journals are really a combination of the two, art plus I like to document what's happening. These are some art journal pages, examples of. I've cut out some magazine pictures or ads that I thought would be good to use someday. I had cut out a bunch of cardinals from Christmas cards and made an art journal page using those. So I'll really use whatever I have at hand, and I save a lot of things that I think I might use. You can buy blank art journals, but you can also make your own. I repurposed an old calendar book or date of planner. It had a lot of pictures in it that I wanted to use for my art journal, but I also painted over some of the pages so that I had like a blank canvas to work on. I've included a photo of some art supplies that I use: rubber stamps, stencils, paints, and inks. And then I have a picture of my craft room there with a project in progress. That could have been during a class that I was taking online. So everything was kind of all over the place. I've made altered books for special occasions. What I did was I used an old book, decorated the cover, decorated the end pages, and used rubber stamps, stencils, and paints to decorate the pages in the book. Of course, I also included a lot of photos. I had made this book for a friend's special birthday, so it did include a lot of photos. But I've done that for a few special occasions, birthdays or anniversaries. I've also made some mixed media collages to commemorate different occasions. I'll use collage paper, stencils, stamps, and sometimes I'll cut out images from old books. And I also use photos too. So I've given these as gifts also. This is the 5th year that I enrolled in an online class called Wanderlust. It's hosted by Everything Art in the UK. It's a year-long series of weekly classes presented by different artists, and the projects are done either in an art journal or a canvas or some other type of surface. This is a great way to be introduced to teachers from different parts of the world and learn the techniques that they teach. So these are some examples of projects from the Wanderlust class. And these are more examples of pages in my Wanderlust journal. I'll often print out photos that I think I'll use, and sometimes I use pictures from magazine ads or the newspaper. About 6 years ago, sorry, I missed a slide. 6 years ago, I took a trip and I wanted to make a travel journal to document the trip. So I had this journal. I liked the cover, but the pages in it were thin and they were lined, so it wouldn't suit my purposes. So I tore out all the pages in that journal. I made new pages with heavier weight paper that I colored using paint and a gel plate, and then I bound them back into the book. So this way I could use it for what I wanted to, the projects that I wanted to do. This is my friends and I working on our travel journals on the cruise ship. What I did was I cut out different ads that we had gotten. I used receipts, tickets, business cards, stuck them in the travel journal. And then of course, when I came home, I printed out photos to put into the journal too. So it's a nice remembrance of the trip. Okay, I've taken many in-person classes at Papercraft Clubhouse, which is a stamping store in Westbrook, Connecticut. They will often have teachers come and teach classes there prior to the pandemic. It's important to support the independent stamp and papercraft brick and mortar stores. Besides offering classes, you get good service there, and usually the employees will are very knowledgeable about the different supplies. So this is a project that I did at a weekend class that was taught by Gwen LaFleur, an artist from Virginia. So these are more examples of projects from classes taught by Gwen. Some of these were done at an in-person class, some were online. The angel in the corner was done on an in-person class, and that's on a media board. The one with the cardinal is an art journal page, and that was done online. During the pandemic, all of the in-person classes had stopped, of course. So some of the teachers started partnering with these small independent stores to offer classes through Facebook or other platforms. So the teacher would get the tuition for the class, and the stores would benefit because the participants would order supplies from the stores and they would be sent out. So this way it benefited both the teachers and the stores, and they were able to stay in business. This was another class that I had taken online by Gwen LaFleur. It involved stitching fabric and kind of found objects. So that was very fun. This is another class a project from a class that I took in person by Seth Apter, who's a New York based artist. And it was a weekend class at Papercraft Clubhouse. We were given a supply list of things to bring. So I had this old wooden wine box that I painted at home. And then all these little boxes were from jewelry. We brought them to class. We decorated the boxes in the class, and then we filled them with little art projects. It's nice to do the in-person classes because you have a chance to meet friends, which is great. Inevitably though, I tend to leave something at home that I wish I had brought to the class, but when you're at a class in a store, you can always buy whatever you need or whatever you want to get. One of the advantages of doing online classes is all the supplies are at my fingertips that I would like to use. I've taken some classes offered by an Illinois-based artist, Amanda Evanston. Sometimes she will offer free tutorials on Instagram. So some of these classes were paid classes, other projects were free tutorials that she offered. These are more projects from classes by Amanda. These are some little booklets that I made following classes online. The black little booklet is a book that I had purchased the pages and put the book together, but then I decorated it with prompts for Advent one year. I had saved some cards that I liked, and I bound them together in a little book. And again, these were 2 Advent journals. I used the blank pages in the journals to decorate, and sometimes I used whatever was on the card too as part of the prompt for the Advent journal. This is these are examples of junk journals. For the journal, I ripped out the pages of an old book and put other pages in to make it a journal. It's called a junk journal because you kind of use junky papers like calendar pages or old book pages, old mail, anything that you'd like to include, and also some good paper too. But the reason that you use some junky type papers is this way you have something started already. There's something already, a background on the page, and then you can just add to it. The 3 little journals were made from old tissue boxes for the covers. And then I filled the pages that I put in there. I cut up an old painting that I had no use for. I put in some scrapbook paper and some good papers too. That was an idea that was presented by the artist Megan Wisner Quinlan on Instagram. These are more examples of projects from Wanderlust, some journal pages and a canvas. These are some paintings that I did. The bottom one with the trees and the moon is a canvas that was following a class. The flowers in the vase was something that I came up with myself. After doing all these classes, I should be able to think of something to do. And then the piece with the butterflies. I had found those two butterflies several years ago. They were dead and intact, like at 2 different times I found them. So I saved them because they were so beautiful and I knew I wanted to use them for something, but I was really afraid that if I stuck them on something, I would wreck them. So I finally got brave and adhered them to this media board, and I didn't wreck them. So I was quite pleased with the way that that project came out, and that was something that I thought of. One of the most recent classes that I've taken online is a slow stitching class offered by Sarah Hartman. In her class, she taught us how to dye fabrics using art supplies, then piecing the fabrics together, and then sewing using any kind of stitching that we felt like doing. So I made a needle book following the instructions in her class. I've also made those little hearts using stitching to commemorate an occasion. And I made a bunch of Valentine cards this year, and I included some stitching on them too. I really enjoy slow stitching projects the most lately. As a younger person, I always did a lot of sewing, embroidery, or crewel. So I think that's, I have a good background in it. So I think that's one reason why I enjoy these stitching projects so much. My problem is there's so many things that I like to do. I'm never really sure what I want to be doing. I usually do have a lot of projects going at once. This is a card that I made for a friend. I had taken a cocktail napkin and adhered it to the front of a plain card. And then I printed out this photo from a recent vacation, stuck it onto the card, and sent it to my friend. So really that's about all that I have to show you today. Are there any questions?
Okay, so thank you very much, Catherine. This was really, really interesting.
Oh, thanks. I was a little bit nervous, as you could tell.
No, you did great. I'm just amazed how colorful everything is and how many different things you did. Anyway, so now we have time for questions, so people can unmute yourselves or you can write things into the chat and we'll try to read the chat. If, let me see. One comment. Yeah. Go ahead, Gail.
Yes. Well, yes, Sherry said that all your work is so beautiful, Kath.
Thanks, Sherry. She's one of my art friends.
I have a question. I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
The work is gorgeous, and the amount of imagination used for this blows my mind, and the variety, it just seems endless. And I can just see the joy in it, which is great.
Yeah, thank you.
And my question is, you talked about slow stitching. Is that the same thing as hand sewing or hand stitching?
Yeah, definitely done by hand, yes. But just kind of taking your time to enjoy the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many years have you been doing this?
Well, really, I started making cards in the 90s. And then I started art journaling in 2014. I had taken my first class in that. But I've really taken a lot of classes like online and in person. And like I say, there's so many things that I want to try. Everything looks interesting to me. So I tend to take a lot of classes. Um, I can't say that I specialize in one thing. Maybe art journaling is what I do the most of, because I'm always saving. I'll cut out comics from the paper or a horoscope that's particularly good. And, sometimes I'll add those to art journal pages. I don't know. I get inspiration from so many different things. If I see a really good picture, in a magazine or the newspaper, I'll cut it out and try to use it. So.
Okay. Thank you.
And let's see, Kath, we have another question from Serena. I
Okay.
like the Advent books. What do you do with them? Do you give them away to friends, or are they just for you? Or do you use them to be more focused through the holidays?
You know what? All those little Advent books or calendars were done following prompts from a class. And they're just for me. And I tend to look at my stuff a lot. Like I have all these art journals, but I do look at them because I really do get a lot of joy from looking at what I did. And sometimes when I look at my journals, I think, what in the world was I thinking? What happened that I did this? Some things I can recall, very clearly, but it's a good way to release my emotions, put it on paper. So with art. So.
Thank you.
So I'm just, amazed. Every one of these is just so bright and vibrant, and they're just really, really exciting.
Oh, thanks, Liz.
And so did you ever take a bookbinding class? I mean, you do take books apart and rebind them. Did you ever take a class in that?
You know what? I've taken some book making classes and I've learned some binding techniques. And really, at this stage of the game, I have purchased so many supplies over the years that I tend to have everything that I need now. So I haven't really taken any bookbinding classes per se, but I've learned some binding techniques. So I have made some little books using those techniques. That's another thing that I really like to do too.
Yeah, they're, and I really love the ones that you sewed, that that are stitched.
Oh, thank you.
Stitching on them. Those are just really, really interesting to me because I like to sew too. And
yeah,
I just, they are just amazingly creative. And like this last one, is that you or your friend?
Oh no, that's me.
I just think it's so neat to get a card like that from somebody, from a good friend. It's just,
well, I thought it was kind of funny actually. We had been on vacation and there was a building that had butterfly wings painted on it. So I asked my husband to take my picture there. So, I was able to print it out and stuck it on the card, with the flower background. I thought it looked good. But I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, very fun. We have a couple more comments, Kath. Loretta says, love your work, so positive, good job.
Thank you.
And from Sherry, she asks, do you have any suggestions on free classes that are offered for people to get started?
You know what? There are plenty of good free classes around. Either you can find a lot of tutorials on YouTube. If you happen to know the artists on Facebook or Instagram, there's something called Sketchbook Revival. That's a free class that's offered every year. It's usually runs for 2 weeks, and it's teachers will teach you different techniques. So I think that you kind of have to know where to look. one thing about going to these independent craft stores like Papercraft Clubhouse, they can give you good ideas there too, as far as, you know, with the products that they sell, there's usually tutorials from the companies that produce those products. They will often have videos to show you how to use their products. So that's a good way to learn information too. Learn different techniques and how to use the products. So.
Do you ever teach classes yourself?
No, I've never done that. No, I mean, I'm always happy to show somebody how to do something, you know, or work with somebody, but I haven't tried teaching any classes yet.
It might be a fun thing to do in the future when the library, you know, is put back together again, and we can do some, I don't know if you'd be interested. I'd love to have you do a collage thing.
Oh yeah, I could probably do that. Because those collage canvases that I made were kind of based on a compilation of a lot of different classes that I have taken. So yeah, I'd be happy to do something like that.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be really good.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, could you go back a couple of slides? Is it possible?
Sure.
To just the ones that are stitched yet, like this, I just love these.
Oh, thanks.
I just think these are really fun, and with those little lines, are all those, like on the bottom right one, are all those lines stitched or are they drawn?
Oh no, they're all stitched.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know what? You know, with the embroidery kits that you used to, or that I used to work on, I always saved the thread that was left over from the projects. So now I've organized all those old threads, and I have plenty of threads, although I'm still missing some colors. But this was a fun thing to do because it was just whatever kind of stitches I felt like doing. So this was really fun. What I've started doing is using my rubber stamps. I'll stamp an image on fabric, and then I've been stitching over the stamped image.
Mhm.
So I'm ending up with a bunch of stitched images. I have to figure out what I want to do with them. But it's kind of fun, you know, when you do a kit, like an embroidery kit or crewel, you're following the pattern. But I like this because I can do my own thing, which I never thought of doing that before until I took that class. So,
Do you ever use the sewing machine?
you know what, I do, but I'm kind of too lazy to drag it out of the cabinet behind me. So, but yeah, I do so.
Yeah. Because I've watched some things on YouTube on quilting where they quilt with just scraps, like really tiny pieces of scraps, and they put them together into bigger pieces, and they just sew them really fast on the machine, and then they do top stitching and things. And it's just amazing how many things are out there that people are doing that are just really fun and creative. And your work is just, yeah, wow.
Wow, yes. And I'll share one other comment from Serena. You have a great sense of color. Thanks so much for sharing with us.
Oh, thank you so much. So yeah, I try to pay attention to the color wheel so that my things look okay. So, but thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, beautiful.
So are there any other questions, comments? Anything else you'd like to say, Kathy, or?
I don't think so. I had notes, but you know what? I got like all mixed up during the presentations.
Oh, you did fine.
Oh, thanks.
Didn't seem like you were mixed up.
Oh yeah, a little bit, but no, I think I've said everything that I want to say.
So, well, thank you so much, Catherine. This was just really, really interesting and beautiful to see. You are really prolific.
Very, very inspirational, Kathy. If I didn't have my hands full, I'd want to try this also, but I've got to stop myself because,
Yeah.
but it's something I would like to try someday.
Yeah.
I know, you know what, honestly too, I just thought of one other thing, if I can find it. I just was doing an online class and one of the teachers said, remember, there's no mistakes with whatever you try, only opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think that that is a good thing to keep in mind, because things don't always come out the way I envision them, but I'll keep on working at it and working at it until I like the way it is. My problem is there's so many things I do like to try. It's kind of hard. Like, I haven't been able to focus on just one thing. Like right now I'm enamored with stitching, but who knows what it'll be in a few months. It might be something else. So
Well, isn't that the fun thing about what you do?
it
You know,
is, because I love to
it's
learn new
endless
things.
possibilities.
That's right. That's right. So
Yeah. And I also think, you know, your friends and family, whoever gets a piece of artwork from you must be just really thrilled. You know, it's like very, very special.
yeah. I mean, you know, I love what I do, and I do try to make special things for the people that I love. So
Yeah. Well, it really shows in your work. So,
thanks, Liz.
so anybody else? Hi, Pam.
Hi, how are you, Liz?
Nice of you to join
So
us.
it was, yes, it was a really nice presentation. I came in a little late. I was trying to get on the Zoom, so I didn't see the first part of it, but
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I really enjoyed, you know, what I did see, and I'm enlarging these pictures, and they're just gorgeous. I love the colors and the
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
really, really beautiful, really
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thanks.
Yep.
So,
Fun stuff.
okay. So our next, you know, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Our next Artists in Conversation presentation will be on Thursday, May 26th at 7 p.m. with Woodbridge artist Carol Abate, who is with us tonight. Yay.
Yay, Carol.
Yay.
So again, go to our website, bethanylibrary.org, for more info about Carol and to register for that online event. And thank you all so much for joining us. And if anybody else is interested in doing a presentation, just contact the library. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Liz.
Thank you,
Thank
Kathy.
Thank you.
Kathy.
Thanks,
night.
Kathy. It was great.
Thanks.
Great.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.